Hello, I'm true crime author Judith A. Yates, and this is my video series, Best True Crime. Judith Yates here, true crime author, criminologist, and I am sitting outside in this beautiful weather reading about forensic entomology. That's right, the study of bugs and forensics. Now, did you know that the first recorded application of using forensic entomology happened in 1850 in France? Here's what happened. Someone was cleaning out a chimney and they found a fetus in the chimney. Well, of course, they summoned the doctor, who just so happened to be an amateur naturalist. And the doctor took the fetus out of the chimney and examined it. Well, because he was an amateur naturalist, he looked at the bugs on the body. And therefore, knowing how the bugs grew and their stages and their life cycles, he was able to determine just how long that child had been in that chimney. Bing, the birth of forensic entomology. Now, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. We had these creatures called waterbugs. They're formerly known as roaches, but who's looking when you have a roach that's about this big, and I kid you not, this big, and they can actually fly? And another creature that just, especially when you live in the country, is a tick. The idea that a little creature can burrow its head into you and suck blood is just, And I always used to say, now what purpose on this earth can sorry, that was my bulldog. What purpose on this earth can a tick and a waterbug serve? But you know what? Entomology. This is actually a very good book. It's an older book. It's called Body in Question, and it talks about just everything that you would want to know in forensics. It's an older book, which is fine. It's not going to have, of course, all the answers. Nobody ever does, but it's really a very good book. Now, speaking of good books, this is exactly why we're here today. In this episode, I want to recommend some good books to you. Now, whenever I do a talk show, whenever I do an appearance, people always ask me one of the same questions, and that is, who are some of your favorite writers and some of your favorite books? There are just far too many to name. And that's one of the actual hardest questions I've ever had to answer. So what I'm going to do is I've compiled a few of the new books that are coming out either this year or next. They need to be on your shelves. These are excellent writers. They're new to the scene. Some of them are. Some of them are older favorites. And they're so good because they are dedicated to the victims and the victim survivors. These are books that you need to put on your shelves.
Laura Brandt, What Hell is Like. Investigator Laura Brandt had been working on her study of serial killers when she met Lawrence Whitaker and Roy Norris. The duo was arrested in 1979. It is believed they are responsible for over 20 murders. There was no end to the depravity of these two men who raped, tortured, murdered, and audiotaped the suffering of women through their abuse. Lawrence Whitaker began to respect Laura Brandt, and her interviews turned into years of investigation in an attempt to locate the bodies of the missing victims. Working closely with law enforcement, digging through mountains of evidence, and by visiting Lawrence Whitaker, Laura believes she has pertinent information on missing evidence that may lead to the identity of more victims. Death row inmates gave her the moniker Siren of San Quentin. Laura Brandt's book, What Hell is Like, is currently in the works. Laura is also discussing a documentary with several television networks. She is dedicated to locating the missing victims. You can follow her work at her Facebook page here, facebook.com/laura.brand.735. John Borowski, John Wayne Gacy, hunting a predator. On December 21, 1978, serial killer John Wayne Gacy was arrested. Gacy would be credited with 55 murders. In 1978, Gacy held the title of America's most prolific serial killer. For the first time in print, John Wayne Gacy, Hunting a Predator, contains copies of actual documents from the police and other legal files covering the pursuit, arrest, and confession of Gacy. John Borowski is an award-winning independent filmmaker and author whose works have garnered international acclaim. You can order copies of John Wayne Gacy, Hunting a Predator on www.johnborowski.com. This includes signed copies. The documentary of the book will be available soon. Hell in the Heartland: Murder, Meth, and the Case of Two Missing Girls by Jax Miller. In December 1999 in Oklahoma, 16-year-old Ashley Freeman and her best friend, Laurie Bible, were having a sleepover. The next morning, the Freeman family trailer was in flames and both girls were missing. In 2015, it remained a cold case, and fiction writer Jax Miller became a true crime author when she set out for Oklahoma to find the truth. What she found was more than she could have ever bargained for. Evidence of unbelievable levels of police negligence, entire communities ravaged by methamphetamine addiction, and a series of interconnected murders with an ominously familiar pattern. Wild rumors, drug debts, revenge, and police corruptions are just a few of the things that led the former award-winning fiction author down a very dark path. Jax Miller now works in the true crime genre, having penned her much-anticipated book and acting as creator, host, and executive producer on the true crime documentary series Hell in the Heartland on CNN's HLN network. You can pre-order Hell in the Heartland, Murder, Meth, and the Case of Two Missing Girls on any major bookstore website. It will be available after July 28, 2020. You can learn more at facebook.com/realjaxmiller. American Serial Killers: The Epidemic Years, 1950 to 2000 by Peter Vronsky. Peter Vronsky is the foremost expert in the history of serial killers. In this first definitive history of the golden age of American serial murder, Peter Vronsky tells the story of the most unusual and prominent serial killers from the 1950s to the early 21st century. American Serial Killers focus on the critical serial killer epidemic era of 1970 to 2000, when 83% of known American serial killers made their appearance. Dr. Peter Vronsky is an author, filmmaker, and investigative historian. He has written 3 definitive bestseller books on the history and psychopathology of serial homicide and its investigation. American Serial Killers: The Epidemic Years, 1950 to 2000 by Peter Vronsky is scheduled to be released on December 8, 2020. You can learn more at www.petervronsky.org. Ron Francel is a lifelong journalist and international best-selling true crime author. Ron appears as a regular on true crime documentaries. He also covered the initial months of the Afghan war shortly after 9/11 and the devastation of Hurricane Rita from the inside in 2004. Ron's newest book may be released in 2021. The working title is Shadow Man, an elusive psycho killer and the birth of the FBI's profilers. After a 7-year-old tourist girl goes missing in a Montana park in 1973, the lead FBI agent quickly runs out of suspects and leads. Then he hears about a theory proposed by 2 fellow FBI agents. By studying crime scenes, it might be possible to ascertain the background, behavior, and psychology of their unknown subject. It's called criminal profiling, but they've never tested their unpopular theory until the frustrated Montana agent told them about this tourist girl who's now been missing for almost a year. What happens next changes the history of modern forensics. You can purchase Ron Francel's books and learn more at www.ronfrancel.com. Sonova Canter is an award-winning true crime author and author trainer. She assists surviving victims of missing persons and unsolved homicides. Her interest in organized crime has resulted in numerous books and blogs on gangsters from the Al Capone era to today's Dixie Mafia. Silenced by the Dixie Mafia, The Anderson Files is about a woman who has fought for answers for over 5 decades. It's about a father's decision that would lead to the death of his disabled son and eventually lead to his own demise. Now left alone to find answers and make sense of the chaos is a brave little Southern belle named Phyllis. You think you know the story of famous Sheriff Buford Pusser? The movies told less than half that story. Then there were the murders of Judge Vincent Sherry and his wife Margaret. It's all here, how this gang of ruthless criminals have stayed hidden in plain sight. They're called the Dixie Mafia. You can purchase Silenced by the Dixie Mafia, The Anderson Years, and learn more at www.sonovainc.com. Does this look like your true crime bookshelf? Well, make room because you want all of these books in your collection. Laura Brandt's What Hell is Like is currently in the works. John Borowski's John Wayne Gacy, Hunting for the Predator, is available now. Hell in the Heartland by Jax Miller can be pre-ordered and will be released in late July 2020. America's Serial Killers, The Epidemic Years by Peter Vronsky will be available in late 2020 or in 2021. Ron Francel's Shadow Man, an elusive psycho killer and the birth of the FBI profilers, may be released in 2021. And Sonova Canter's Silenced by the Dixie Mafia, The Anderson Files, is now available. And you can find my own true crime books at www.truecrimebook.net. I'm true crime author Judith A. Yates. You've been listening to my video series, Best True Crime. Thanks for subscribing, and be safe out there.